Some interesting news out of Salt Lake City, Utah yesterday. Dwayne Wade, of course, is a new minority owner. He's got a great relationship with the owner of the Utah Jazz, involved in many business dealings with him. And part of the reason why they brought on Dwayne Wade was to be kind of a consultant and to be able to help in the development of some of the young players, especially Donovan Mitchell. Now, Dwayne Wade came out yesterday and said that he's very concerned about Donovan Mitchell potentially wanting out of Utah. Now, here's what we know. A fully loaded Jazz squad, granted with a hobbled Donovan Mitchell who sprained his ankle a month prior to the start of the postseason, they were up 2-0 against the Clippers, a fully loaded Clippers team with Kawhi, with PG, with Reggie Jackson, with Marcus Morris, the whole gang. And the fact that they blew that game and really that series without Kawhi is what sparked all these rumors. The fact that even with an injured Donovan Mitchell, they had the doors wide open for them just to walk through to the Western Conference Finals. And that is not to take a shot at the Clippers, because what we're seeing from them right now is impressive against the Phoenix Suns. But the Jazz had been so good all year. This was the best chance for them to probably reach an NBA Finals. Similarly to the Bucks on the other side, everything was falling through for them. The breaks were coming their way. The Lakers are out. The Clippers are hobbled. Denver Nuggets, Jamal Murray's gone. Yes, they'd still have to go through the Phoenix Suns. But Chris Paul's shoulder, we were unsure how he'd be able to play. Everything was on a silver platter for the Utah Jazz. And Donovan Mitchell, as great as he was individually, he couldn't rely on Mike Conley to stay healthy and play. And I love Mike Conley, but he wasn't available until either the last game. I think it was game 5 he came back. Wasn't great. Game 6 he was okay. And the rest of the team, while they shot great from three-point range in the first half, they couldn't make anything in the second half. And I think Donovan Mitchell is saying to himself, he's in a similar boat to Damian Lillard. He's got to look at himself in the mirror and assess whether or not this is the best place to win a championship, if this place is the most conducive place to winning a championship. And similarly, the ownership group of the Utah Jazz, just like any other ownership group of a small market organization, they feel the same anxiety and paranoia as everyone else, which is, we've got a young budding superstar who's on the verge of winning at the highest level. Can we surround him with the pieces to do it? And this was about as well constructed of a team as you could possibly imagine. Now, personally, I don't think Donovan Mitchell should leave the Utah Jazz. I don't think he should leave the Utah Jazz. I don't think there are many better places for him to thrive, for him to flourish in. I think that the environment, the media, really the lack thereof, is absolutely ideal for a guy in Donovan Mitchell. He's been able to excel there, and I think that that's the best place for him. But if we are taking Dwayne Wade's comments at face value and saying that there's a good chance that he may reconsider his long-term plans, even though he just signed a long-term max contract, 5 years, $163 million to remain in Utah, and so therefore the Jazz don't necessarily have to trade him. But we know that NBA stars in today's age, they wield a lot of power. They carry a lot of clout and influence and weight. And if they want to demand a trade, they can do it. Anthony Davis was able to get out of New Orleans. James Harden most recently was able to demand a trade out of Houston. And they're able to land in their ideal destinations and landing spots. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Donovan Mitchell could pull this off. So then the question becomes, if Donovan Mitchell really wants out of Utah, then where would be some ideal landing spots for him? Again, I think he should remain in Utah. But these are places, I've listed 3 places I'm about to describe that not only could be opportunities for him to win, but also are realistic trading spots where the teams have enough capital, have enough assets and players to make this thing work. So the first team that I could see Donovan Mitchell potentially trading to and wanting to go to is the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, the way that this trade would be, Donovan Mitchell traded to the Philadelphia 76ers for a package around Ben Simmons and Tyrese Maxey and maybe a couple picks. Now, this is why this would be a great trade for Donovan Mitchell. We've talked about how great it would be for Damian Lillard to be paired with Joel Embiid. Imagine Donovan Mitchell playing in Philadelphia with Joel Embiid as the center, those two guys. Now Tobias Harris is actually in his comfortable role as the third best guy on the team. You still have Seth Curry. Maybe you have Danny Green, not sure. And you build around those two guys. They're so explosive that Donovan Mitchell and Joel Embiid with Tobias Harris as your number 3, though that could be a legitimate trio that could challenge a healthy Brooklyn Nets squad. Yes, I said it right here on Morning Joe. If the Philadelphia 76ers got their hands on Donovan Mitchell to pair with Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris, that's a team that could challenge the Brooklyn Nets as a fully healthy and loaded squad. That's how highly I think of Donovan. That's how highly I think of Joel Embiid. They're available. They play. They battle through injuries. And so that would make sense for Philly. And for Utah, listen, you don't want to lose Donovan Mitchell, but think about how they've constructed their team. They constructed around Donovan Mitchell with a ton of shooters. Well, that system can still work for a guy in Ben Simmons who would thrive in a situation where you surround him with a bunch of shooters. That's exactly what the team would be. So now you have a new corner piece in Ben Simmons. You've got an up-and-coming player in Tyrese Maxey that I think's got some potential, showed some glimpses of potential in Philly. Doc Rivers didn't play him a lot, but he could be a nice up-and-coming player. And so I think the Philadelphia 76ers would be a really interesting potential, not to mention Ben Simmons plays defense. And we know Quinn Snyder, his background is defense. That's what he prefers. That's the type of system that he's tried to implement. Obviously, this year they were known for their offense, not their defense. But I think that could be a potential good trade for both teams. Sixers want to move off Simmons. And if the Jazz are going to lose Donovan Mitchell, that's a good starting piece to build around. At number 2 is the Los Angeles Lakers. I think that the Lakers would love a guy like Donovan Mitchell. Of course, you trade Donovan Mitchell from the Jazz to the Lakers for a package around Talen Horton-Tucker. You sign and trade Dennis Schroeder, and you throw in some picks or some cash or some capital, whatever you need to make the trade work. The Lakers, now you've got your future moving forward, and you can build around Anthony Davis and Donovan Mitchell for years to come. Obviously, LeBron is still there, so it'll be a formidable threesome. While they're there in LA, they'd obviously be the prohibitive favorites. That would be a dynamic team. And from the Utah Jazz perspective, listen, Talen Horton-Tucker could be a really, I'm very bullish on him. So I think that he could be a potentially really good prospect. Dennis Schroeder is a solid point guard. I think you let Mike Conley go. I love Mike Conley, but you owe him a ton of money. And I don't think Dennis Schroeder is going to command the same type of deal now based on his postseason performance. And who knows? You pair those two guys, you have some different pieces to build around. Is that the best trade for them? No. But the reality is Donovan Mitchell, there's only a select number of teams where Donovan Mitchell can go play and be traded to. He's only going to be traded to contenders. And there are really only a few teams that he could fit in with right now at this point. So Lakers are number 2. And again, with lower expectations, I think that's an environment where Dennis and THT and whomever else could thrive. At number 3, the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics have never made big moves. I know Danny Ainge is no longer the GM. Now it's Brad Stevens. We'll see if he kind of tries to change things up in Boston. I think you trade for Donovan Mitchell. The Jazz send Donovan Mitchell to Boston. And the Boston send a package revolving around Jaylen Brown and some different picks. Maybe throw in Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard, and different picks, and you go get Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum, That's a dynamic duo. You got two stars playing together. I love Jaylen Brown. I do. He's gone a lot better. He's an all-star. But offensively, while he's continued to improve, he's not the same level as Donovan Mitchell. And I think that if Jason Tatum is to be the leader of this team, he needs another co-partner and another crime partner with him. And Jaylen Brown, I don't think, is good enough. And that's not a knock on Jaylen Brown. It's just the reality of how much talent and the depth of the talent pool there is in the NBA. There are levels to this. And I think Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, those two guys could form something special in Boston, a bigger kind of market with some bigger expectations. I think that could work. And then on the flip side, I think Jaylen Brown, he's continued to ascend every year. You could argue for about the majority of the season, or at least 3/4 of the season, Jaylen Brown was actually the best player on the Boston Celtics. He was better than Jason Tatum for the bulk of the season. So if you believe in his progression as a player, and he's still a young player, he's 25, I believe, 24, 25 is Jaylen Brown. If you believe in his future, and he was an all-star this year, so you are exchanging an all-star for an all-star. He's good on both sides of the ball. He's an athletic wing. And I just think the pairing of Tatum and Brown playing the exact same position just doesn't really work anymore. So now you have Donovan Mitchell, who's a designated 2 for Boston. You have Jaylen Brown in his role in Utah. And I like Peyton Pritchard as well. And again, maybe some assets, some other picks that you throw in to make the deal work. But I like a trade revolving around those pieces. And again, he plays defense every single year, is Jaylen Brown. So I think that this is something that could work.